Hello and welcome to the Ant-Man channel. It is Wednesday the 17th of December 2014 and I'm your host, Ant-Man. So here we go. From the Christian Post, christianpost.com, under the column Politics, we got here an article that was published yesterday afternoon. I don't know where that came from. By Leonardo Blair. Here we go. He's a Christian Post reporter. It is titled, Federal Judge Declares President Obama's Executive Action on Immigration Unconstitutional. No. U.S. President Barack Obama delivers remarks on his use of executive authority to relax U.S. immigration policy during a speech at Del Sol High School in Vegas, Nevada, and November 21st, 2014. So Obama imposed the most sweeping immigration reform in a generation on Thursday, easing the threat of deportation for about 5 million illegal immigrants. President Barack Obama's executive action on immigration is unconstitutional. U.S. District Judge for the Western District of Pennsylvania, Arthur Schwab, declared in a court opinion. Schwab made the conclusion Tuesday in a 38-page opinion on the criminal case of undocumented Honduran immigrant Leonardo Juarez Escobar, who was charged in federal court with unlawful re-entry after he was arrested earlier this year in Pennsylvania for drunk driving. President Obama's unilateral legislative action violates the separation of powers provided for in the United States Constitution, as well as the Take Care Clause, and therefore is unconstitutional, Judge Schwab wrote in the decision. Schwab, who was nominated to the bench by President George W. Bush, said President Obama's executive action on immigration on November 20th, 2014, goes beyond, this is quoted, this is his actual words, goes beyond prosecutorial discretion because A, it provides for a systematic and rigid process by which a broad group of individuals will be treated differently than others based upon arbitrary classifications rather than case-by-case examination, and B, it allows undocumented immigrants who fall within these broad categories to obtain substantive rights. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Yes, I have compassion for the immigrant. But yeah, we have to take care of our country as well. We have to put that priority ahead of, we have to make that priority number one, or we have to put that priority above having that kind of, I would think reckless compassion. That's just reckless, you know what I mean? So you want to let a bunch of MS-13 thugs into your country, huh? You want to let hardened, I know what it's like to be, I've been in El Salvador. If you've ever been to another country, you know that other countries are much different than ours culturally. And I'll tell you that south of the border, we have a culture of people who don't really share the same values, I'll say, than us. They're not brought up with the rich history that we are brought up with here in the United States. We have a rich history of morality. We have a rich history of fighting tyranny and doing amazing things for the sake of what's good in the world. And, and regardless what you might be hearing at your universities these days, but, it's important to add that to this article, because I would say that, you got to consider that. If we're going to let people come over here, we should educate them. We should tell them that you're an American now, you should learn how to be an American and think like an American. Why not? Is it wrong to do that? I would say that you should, because if you let people come into your country, it's going to cause more issues. We already have issues here. So, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like reckless to just let other things, and then you're letting also the Muslims, who are our enemies, into our country that way too. If you just open the borders, that means that they have access into our country, because it's not like they're not in Mexico. It's not like they're not, you know what I mean, around or something. But I guess only what the news tells you is true these days to most people, to the general public, but it's so obvious that these things are very dangerous that the president is doing. Professor Jonathan H. Adler, who teaches courses in constitutional, administrative, and environmental law at the Case Western University School of Law, who first highlighted the decision in the Washington Post, said this is the first judicial opinion to address Obama's decision to extend deferred action for some undocumented immigrants in the U.S. Well, according to the White House, we're not supposed to criticize President Obama. So we're like in neo-feudalistic, we're like in a neo-feudalistic age, I should say, where it's like King John's running around, even though, the Magna Carta was, pretty much forced upon him for being a crazy lunatic. He pretty much embodies that same spirit like Obama does, is what I'm trying to say. And he's kind of like thinking that he can undermine the Constitution that he swears on with his hand on the Bible that he's going to uphold and defend. It's amazing, right? Well, this kind of stuff only flies with people who are illiterate to our Constitution and to how our system works. The checks and balances and the powers, the separation of powers is a very vital thing, very vital. There is a philosophy behind what our Constitution stands for, and our founding fathers told us that we had to watch out because we have such an amazing country that we need to defend it. We need to know that we have people who will try to enslave us if we don't watch our butts. So that's what our country stands for. That's what, when you look at the flag, that's what that stands for. It stands for being free and knowing what that means, that freedom ain't free. So let me just remind you real quick that, and I'll continue here. Schwab, who was nominated to the bench by President George W. Bush, I just wrote that, or I just read that, I should say. Schwab rejected, he rejected a 4-page response from the Justice Department which argues that President Obama's actions on immigration does not affect the criminal prosecution of previously removed aliens. None of the executive actions announced by the President on November 20th, 2014 address criminal prosecution of previously removed aliens, noted the Justice Department in its response. You know what happens when criminals get away with what they do, when they don't get the just punishment that they deserve? You know what they end up doing? So people out there that don't believe in justice and don't know how that works, you know how that works is that the criminal who gets away with doing what he's always doing will become more active in that and better at it. It's true. If you let someone take an inch, he'll take, you know what I mean? He'll take a mile. So, you know what I mean? You give the devil a foothold and he will, you know what I mean? He will enslave you. You will be bound by the devil. Let's see here real quick. None of the executive actions, according to Professor Adler, some 24 states led by Texas have filed lawsuits challenging President Obama's immigration policy reforms, charging that he has exceeded his executive authority. King John, who cannot be criticized anymore because criticizing him can get you in trouble now, I guess. So, imagine. I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, what country do you think you're running, Mr. President? Who do you think you are that you progressive liberals these days think we're so stupid that you can do whatever you want? I'm just asking. But anyways, he doesn't, however, believe these states have solid legal standing and argued that it is quite unusual for a district court to reach this sort of constitutional issue in this sort of case. The new policy does not preclude the executive branch from revoking deferred action in individual cases and does not create any enforceable rights against future executive action, argued Adler. It's no more unconstitutional than a U.S. attorney telling the prosecutors in his office not to prosecute low-level marijuana possession absent other factions that justify federal prosecution, he added. You can read Judge Schwab's full opinion on this link on here, so if you want, you can go to christianpost.com, front page article. Federal judge declares Obama's executive action on immigration it's unconstitutional. It is crazy to argue with that. You need to remember what country you live in if you don't agree with that. You need to remember that there is a set of rules that we need to all follow, and there is a good reason for that. I know that the average American that grows up in the system has no respect for authority, but you need to realize that respect for authority is actually good for you when you put it to a certain standard. My standard is always going to be God's law over the Constitution, but the Constitution's there for a reason. It's to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic. What is domestic? Remember that there can be an enemy within, and there is. So just don't be naive. God bless you, and have a good day.